Coming up on Windows Weekly, Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are here. Of course, I am standing in for Leo Laporte, and we kick things off with a conversation about our Surface Laptop 3s. Is it CRACKGATE? Well, we'll find out more, and maybe my Alcantara is protecting good old Elvis. Plus, Microsoft Edge is getting some updates. What's coming on the roadmap? Windows 10, including version 2004, and I learned how those naming conventions actually work. Plus Office and Microsoft 365, a little bit of Xbox Corner before we round things out with the tips and picks of the week. Stay tuned. Windows Weekly is brought to you from LastPass Studios. Securing every access point doesn't have to be a challenge. LastPass unifies access and authentication to make securing your employees simple and secure. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly, episode number 660, recorded Wednesday, February 19th, 2020. Outlook uncertain. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by LastPass. Reused passwords are compromising the security of businesses worldwide. LastPass will ensure that your employees are using passwords securely by generating strong passwords for them. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more. And by ExpressVPN. Protect your online privacy with one click. Yes, it's that easy. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/windows. And by Melissa. Bad data happens to good companies. That's why 10,000 businesses count on Melissa for clean, reliable address data. Get started today with 25,000 records cleaned for free. That's a $75 value at melissa.com/twit. Welcome back to Windows Weekly. I am Micah Sargent in for Leo Laporte. And of course, this is the show with a weekly look at all things Microsoft, including Windows and Office and Xbox and so much more from 2 of the foremost Windows watchers in the world. It's Paul Thurrott of Thurrott.com. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
How are you today?
Pretty good.
Good. Glad to hear it. And also, Mary Jo Foley of All About Microsoft. Hello, Mary Jo.
Hello, Micah. How are you?
I'm just peachy keen. How are you doing?
Pretty good, except for my sound issues, but otherwise good.
Good. I'm glad
I think you sound great.
You sound lovely.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Hopefully. Let me just adjust my microphone here a little bit. All right. And I think we're good to go. I have to say, I was a little nervous. I happened to be on Twitter the other day, and that's enough to be nervous just in general.
It is.
In particular, because of a tweet that I saw fly by, Mary Jo, about our beautiful Surface Laptop 3s and potential issues for the screens cracking. What's going on?
I know. I'm telling you, when you're an owner of a device and you see this come through, it doesn't make you feel too good. Yeah, so there's people on Reddit, Microsoft Answer Forum, and now I'm hearing from people directly out there on the internet who say they have a brand new Surface Laptop 3 and they haven't dropped it, they haven't slammed it down, they haven't had any kind of a bumping issue with it, and they're noticing either a hairline crack along the corner or sometimes a crack across the entire screen that just have spontaneously shown up.
Ooh.
So we should give Micah the good news, though.
I know. You're safe, Micah, probably, because everybody who's reporting it has an aluminum Surface Laptop 3.
And who would be dumb enough to not get a Surface Laptop without Alcantara?
Now, I have to say,
right here,
Mary Jo, I had an out loud cackle when I was reading your article and you said knock on aluminum. That was a great line, so props for that. But here you can see me feeling my fine Alcantara.
A little too much, frankly.
Yeah, I'm getting a little uncomfortable too, honestly. And that may be what's keeping my laptop safe. I will say whenever I covered the event where they announced these new laptops, and I remember the moment where they were bragging about the lack of the little rubberized sort of rim or seal around the outside of the laptop screen as sort of, that was a feature.
Right.
And that was because of the way that they'd precisely engineered it to where you can open it and close it with one finger while you're playing the piano with your other hand or something like that.
Yeah, but make sure the finger's in the middle, not in the corner, because apparently that might be
That's a bad spot.
part of the issue. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
It's got to be a flex problem, like a...
that's what people are saying. Yeah.
Well,
some people say they're
that,
hearing this cracking sound sometimes when they
don't wanna
open
hear
it. And then
Yeah,
some
hear
people have
that.
said they noticed a flex and then suddenly the screen cracks.
oh, Lord. So then,
you,
go ahead.
sorry. Well, I don't know. Is this impacting both 13 and 15-inch versions or just one?
So I've only heard from 13s
Oh,
so
no.
far,
That's ours.
which is
So
interesting.
I wonder if they made an internal change there to trim the weight, maybe, or...
One person. So, okay, first we should say this is not widespread because I haven't heard from everybody who has a Surface Laptop 3, and it also has not affected me.
Right.
But we don't know how many people, and Microsoft, of course, is not saying how many people. But one person I saw on one of the places where people are reporting problems guessed something that I thought made a lot of sense. He said, I wonder if it has to do with Microsoft removing the gasket between the glass and the metal when they took the Alcantara out.
Yeah. And let me ask you, because Mary Jo, you have one that that is just the aluminum, and you mentioned that you haven't kept it protected or any type of extra safe or anything like that, and it's still causing these issues. So,
no, for me though, I
you're
thought,
not. Yeah, you're not having the problem, right?
Yeah, you would think me, right? Because I'm just like literally throwing it in a large purse and taking it with no sleeve. And I've also noticed my cat has started jumping up on here.
Whoa!
And,
Yeah, but I don't think the problem is when you're carrying it around. I think the problem is opening and closing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're probably not doing that in a, like the gorilla in those Samsonite ads where he's jumping up and down in the luggage or whatever.
Right. I'm
You know,
not.
like you're
but
probably pretty
some of
gentle with it.
I am, but I see people who are reporting this saying, I'm not somebody who slams my laptop open or closed and I baby it. And it's so we don't really have any sense of how widespread, why it's happening to some people and not others. But we do know as of yesterday that Microsoft said they're investigating it. And that's the first time they've said that. They said a limited number of customers have contacted us and reported screens cracking through no fault of their own. And we are evaluating the situation and investigating the root cause of the claims.
Do you think Microsoft, under any circumstances, would say an astronomical number of customers have contacted us?
No company.
No.
No.
But, I would say both you and I would have heard from an astronomical number of people on Twitter and email if this was happening to a lot of people, right?
Right.
Right.
That makes sense.
I would think.
So here's
You're
my one sort of issue. If we've seen it only in the ones that are aluminum, or as far as it seems so far, then how is it an opening sort of screen issue? Because this screen is not affected by the
Stop touching it. You're going to break it. What are you doing?
You're right. What am I thinking? I need to, I don't know, wear gloves.
How many
when I
news
open it.
reports do you have to read?
How come it seems that the ones that have Alcantara are not being affected? Is there I wonder if there's a difference in the actual build of the product between my version and your version,
That's really
aside
weird,
from just the
That's
felt.
got to be a weird coincidence. I remember I used to live out west, and we would get the engine steam cleaned on the car, and then the oil would leak. And so before the grease covering the engine actually held the oil inside, and like maybe that's the role that Alcantara plays.
I kind of love that theory.
It holds it together, the guys are all dumping on it because it's got like Cheetos and the wrist rest, but actually that's the thing that's holding it together. It's the glue.
So fun. It's a coincidence that you bring that up because I've been researching getting my engine steam cleaned, so it's really odd that you bring that up today.
So the motto is do not.
Do not steam clean your engine or the oil will leak.
Well, we had an older car, but I mean, at the time it was just disappointing because literally it was holding in oil from dripping out of the engine.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So what do? We just hope against hope? Is that the solution for now?
Well, some people are bringing the laptops into Microsoft stores or the places they bought them, and they're saying, hey, this happened to me and I didn't cause it. And am I under any kind of a warranty? Am I going to have to replace it? And right now, agents who are responding online and in stores are telling people you're liable for it and you've got to replace it and we're not paying for it. My guess is if this is something Microsoft can document, they're not going to say that, because I don't know if you guys remember this, but in 2018, there were some problems with flickering screens on Surface Pro 4s, and Microsoft ended up replacing the devices for free in the end. Right. So I think if this really is something they can prove is a pattern and not the fault of users, I think they're going to have to replace them for free. That would be my guess.
I will say this too, because obviously in the Surface world, we're all familiar with the problems of 3.5 years ago, whenever that was, 3-4 years ago, whatever, with Surface Pro 4, and especially with the first gen Surface Book, massive reliability problems that they never really got on top of. But one of the big problems with that event initially was just how silent Microsoft was. Yeah. So I will say at the very least, like this time they've acknowledged it, what seems like very early on. And I take that as a hopeful sign too.
Me too. I think I saw some reports of this dating back to January, but they were very isolated, and now they're kind of piling on, right? And so now that the press has picked up on this.
Yeah, we haven't been talking about this since November, right? And then all of a sudden they finally say something. I mean, it seems like they did jump on it fairly early. So I will at least give them credit for that. I mean, you remember it's a hard computer science problem was one of the things that had come out of that initial event. I mean, it's not like that, at least not yet. So that's a positive sign.
It is. And they're at a point in their Surface history where you don't want this to start happening, right? Because they're starting to get people liking their devices, and they pass the Consumer Reports hurdle that they had, and I think they know if this really is an issue, they've got to be on top of it, and they've got to get to the agents in the field and tell them, stop telling customers it's their problem, right? And tell them we're looking at it, and hold on, don't panic. So I'm trying not to panic, but I'm kind of panicking. I like every morning now I open my Surface Laptop 3 and I put my hands on the screen like, are there any cracks?
Yeah, I got to make sure there are no dust particles anywhere on it so that if you press it, oh boy.
Yeah, don't get any crumbs in there.
Don't be eating Cheetos over this thing.
Oh, man, but the Alcantara is great for rubbing your Cheeto dust on.
That's right.
Darn it.
No, you are okay, Micah, because I haven't seen anybody with Alcantara saying that this is a problem for them. I haven't seen a single person say that.
Weird.
Yep.
I know.
So maybe, Paul, you can help me figure out what is the difference between, because when Microsoft has the Surface Pro 10, the Surface Pro 7, and the Surface Laptop 3, but then it's also got the Surface Book. What's the difference between the Surface Book and the Surface Laptop?
So two major things. The first one is the screen can come off.
Okay.
And they call that the clipboard, but it's basically a tablet. What that means is that the processor, the RAM, and the storage are all in there with the screen. The hardware base that is the keyboard also has an extra battery and usually has a dedicated GPU as well. So when that thing's attached as a normal laptop, you can take advantage of that, the additional battery in the GPU. So it's, I would compare, it's kind of like the MacBook Pro of the Microsoft world.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Where the Surface Laptop is like the MacBook Air.
Gotcha. So we've got the Surface Laptop 3 that's been updated, the Surface Pro 7 that's been updated, the Surface Pro 10 that's been updated. We are waiting on the Surface Book, and apparently we're going to be seeing that soon?
Yeah, Brad, and I don't know, Mary Jo, did you confirm this separately yourself? I don't remember.
We've been hearing the rumors since the fall hardware event of Surface Book 3 showing up in the spring. We kind of heard people talking about that at the show. Yeah.
Yeah, so Surface Book 3 is, I would say Surface Book 2, the current version, is probably about 2.5 years old off the top of my head. Yeah. Surface Go is about 1.5 years. If I'm remembering correctly. So they're both due. Neither one appears to be changing dramatically. Basically the same form factors, updated internals, obviously. I don't think there's anything dramatic going on there. I was thinking, it's funny, I almost said earlier when we were talking about that previous story, we should give Microsoft a little bit of credit because they have had a pretty good reliability run since those problems from, several years ago. But then again, they don't really release product very often, right? And
Yeah.
Aside from Surface Pro, maybe it seems like they kind of coast on these designs for a long time, and part of it might be out of the fear of what had happened before with the reliability issues. I'm sorry that they had with Surface Book 1 and with Surface Pro 4, but. Whatever. I mean, we should still maybe compliment them for that. So I don't think they're going to go in a radical new direction with either one of these new devices.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's kind of how hardware vendors do things these days too, right? Like it's kind of seldom that you see a brand new form factor like the Surface Duo and Neo, right? You mostly see people kind of incrementally updating something that works, like the Elite Book for HP and things like that. So I feel like they feel like they've got the form factors down pretty well, despite what's going on with the Surface Laptop 3 right now.
I also, and I don't mean this in a cynical way, I mean, Apple is obviously an influence when it comes to the Surface stuff. And Apple is a company that tends to ride designs for a really long time. And they'll rev their laptops and so forth, and they'll add new internals and things like that. But usually they kind of stick with the basic platform for a long time, and you can see that across many Apple products. And Microsoft's doing the same thing, and there's pragmatic reasons for that, right? You can take more advantage of your investment every time you make a new form factor, whatever. But they obviously these aren't phones, they're not going to change every single year, or even every 3 years, So I think it makes sense.
Yeah. I was wondering what they do if they were going to do a Surface Go 2, because I kind of thought they would have done that before now, since it runs penny and gold and people were complaining about the speed and the performance of the processor. And it doesn't sound like they're planning any kind of huge upgrade there. The rumor is there could be a Core M3 processor in those. But again, nobody's saying anything like, and a whole brand new design. I mean, maybe the pen will have a little carrying case like it does on the Surface Pro X or something. But
well, I mean, here's what I mean, because I often defend Surface Go because I love it so much.
Yeah, you
I
do.
will say that. Well, no, I mean, one thing we do see is that when you look at the sales of the Surface products, and we can't look at the actual numbers because Microsoft doesn't provide those, but you have firms like AdDuplex that looks at what the machines are that are out in the world. The one thing that data consistently shows is that the only products that really sell in volume are the tablets, rather. So that's primarily Surface Pro. Back in the day, there was also a Surface 3. So that's kind of long gone. But now the Surface 3 replacement in many ways is Surface Go. And Surface Go, I mean, I pointed out its deficiencies a lot, but the one thing it has going for it is it's a way for people to get into the Surface product line at a discount. And it does provide that classic tablet 2-in-1 form factor that seems to be very successful for Microsoft. So I think, again, it may just, from their perspective, be a matter of not breaking something that seems to be working. It's fair to say the performance is terrible. The battery life is terrible. The keyboard is too small. There's all kinds of, whatever. But when you look at the usage numbers, it's up in I don't remember the exact number, but it's somewhere in the top 5 already. So it's obviously selling. I mean, people seem to be using it.
It's got a good heart, regardless of all those.
It does. Yeah, it does. Actually, the problem is
the portability of it. The portability of it is awesome. I really thought I would like it more than I did, because the keyboard just was a deal breaker for me. It's too small for me to type on, and so it's great if I just want to type a couple sentences in an email, but if actually writing something on it, I can't. So, but you know what? What's more surprising to me about these spring hardware launch rumors is Brad is not hearing definitively that we'll see the Surface earbuds, and I kind of thought they would definitely have those by the spring, given they originally planned to have them out before last year. And also, I had heard rumors a while back about a new Surface dock, because that's really long in the tooth, right? And it seems like that would be a good time for them to come out with a new Surface dock. But again, that rumor is nowhere around. So
yeah, it seems like a Surface dock these days should be, I was going to say USB-C based, but actually why bother? I mean, I assume they'll just keep it with the same connector.
Yeah, that is odd that we don't have a date on the Surface earbuds.
We don't.
I feel like something didn't happen there.
Wrong.
That they were,
Me too.
Yeah, they were expecting to solve a problem that wasn't solved. So I we'll see. But yeah, Mary Jo's right. I mean, they originally intended, they never gave a date, but it was the end of 2019, I think is how they said it. by the end of 2019 or December 20, whatever the date was. But yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. There's still a few months to go.
Yeah, I wondered too if they do any of the Surface Hub announcements there. You know, we're pretty sure 2X is on hold, either temporary or permanent hold. But the 2S is supposed to get an 84-inch model, and I thought maybe they'd put that into a spring hardware event if they have one. But we're not really sure what's happening there.
I feel like it's just such a different audience. I mean, it is a Surface product. I mean, sure, why not? But and what about Surface Studio? You know?
Yeah. Still on 2.
I know. Nobody has heard a rumor, I don't think, about a new Surface Studio coming. There's a Surface Studio monitor, which is just the display without any compute, that they say will come out this year. That will be happening. But as far as like the next generation Surface Studio, I haven't heard a thing about that.
I'm sure the feedback they got on that was like, this thing's beautiful, it's way too much money, and seriously, could we just have a display?
So will the display be touch sensitive and all that jazz, or is it just a display that you can...
I believe so. I'm pretty sure it's touch and pen, all the things like that.
So I could connect Elvis to the display and get all the fancy Surface Studio jazz
stuff.
Okay, that's kind of interesting.
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. I didn't realize that the hub, the Surface Hub 2, I didn't realize that the little shelf on it was a battery. That's kind of interesting, so that you can carry it around, or not carry it around, but wheel it around. It reminds me of it being in elementary school, and the teacher would wheel in the
AV card.
Like, yes, we get to watch something on VHS.
Yep.
Yep.
I know if you've seen Google Jamboard at all, which is their competitor to that, it has the same kind of deal. Rolls in on a cart, so that you can bring it to different rooms or put it out in the hall or whatever.
I hate the name.
Jamboard?
Yeah. That's very interesting and childish. Sorry, Google.
I think they did it so every time it fails, someone can say, "We got jammed."
That's exactly why they did it. And you can't say anything with the Surface Hub. There's no clever pun there, huh?
Not really.
Yeah. Well, before we move on to talk about Microsoft Edge and a roadmap there, I do want to take a quick break to tell you all about LastPass, who are courteous enough to bring you this episode of Windows Weekly. The global password, or rather the global password security report, it recently was published, and it revealed some interesting findings of the trends in credential management, access, and authentication throughout businesses worldwide. So employees have been known to reuse a password 13 times on average. 13 times they were using passwords. 49% is the average security score of over 47,000 businesses that use LastPass. And that means ongoing password reuse is hampering those scores. 49%, don't know if you know that, but that's failing. Not great. LastPass helps solve these access and authentication challenges for business through unified password management, single sign-on, and multi-factor authentication. You can manage password security with over 100 customizable policies. And LastPass recently rolled out passwordless authentication for employees so you can log into your work without typing a password. And they also offer a single sign-on portal with over 1,200 applications. Making sure that your employees are securely logging into different sites, it doesn't have to be painful. You can get the LastPass browser extension and start solving your access and authentication challenges today. LastPass goes above and beyond to ensure security for all of its users. Your data is encrypted and decrypted at the device level, so your data is kept secret even from LastPass. Your master password and the keys used to encrypt and decrypt data are never sent to LastPass's servers and are never accessible by LastPass. As the gold standard, they engage trusted, world-class, third-party security firms to conduct routine audits and testing of their services and their infrastructure. Here at TWIT, we use LastPass Enterprise, and that gives me access to all the things very simply, very easily. If we hire someone new and they need to be able to access some of the accounts that TWIT has, it's a very simple process once they've got their LastPass account. And same here whenever I need to log into our Amazon account or any of the other services that we use. It makes it so simple to do so. You need LastPass for you and your business, and you can do that with their amazing features that are going to improve security across your company and make life easier for your users. You just visit lastpass.com/twit to find out how they can help you. That's lastpass.com/twit to learn more about LastPass, and we thank them for sponsoring this week's episode of Windows Weekly. All righty, my Credge sticker is happily placed on my screen. Elvis is thrilled, and it's time to talk about the future of
Are you
Edge.
worried that sticker might impact the weight balance of the screen?
No, it's helping to reinforce this right corner, which I've heard is more likely to be affected. Yeah,
just tape it over the corner.
Yeah, just start to put it over on the other side too. Are there screen protectors for that? There probably are. That makes me sad, honestly. Let's not talk about sad things. Let's talk about Microsoft Edge's roadmap. This is exciting. When things are coming in 2020.
Great. So the thing that many of us have been waiting for is extension syncing on Edge. And that it was supposed to start rolling out, I thought, this week or last week, and I don't think it has, starting with the Canary channel. It seemed like it was going to be sent at first to a select subset of the Canary channel, and then I guess more broadly distributed after that. But this is something for me that until they have this, it's hard to recommend that normal users use Credge, because I guess it depends how you use it. But if you have it on multiple devices, you want to have your extensions carry over instead of every single time having to reload them and set them all up again. So this will alleviate that problem. It's on the roadmap. It says it's coming in February, and I guess that means for Canary channel is my interpretation.
Yeah, that is exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also planned for February, favorite sync issue fixes, because a lot of people have been having things like sync not working, deleted favorites reappearing, favorites being duplicated. So they say in February, and there's like one more week of that after this week, they are going to have that fixed. Also, this is kind of a nice option. Set your custom photo in the new tab page as the background photo. That would be a nice option for some people.
Oh, right, because right now mine are some seagulls kissing, and
which is
that
nice.
Makes me I'm a little uncomfortable,
No.
honestly.
Oh, really? You don't like that?
I don't. Yeah, seagulls kissing kind of weirds me out.
How about the mice fighting in the London subway? Did you see that one?
That'd be great. That'd be awesome.
That would be good, right? Yeah. So you're hopefully by February you'll be able to change that photo yourself and have the one you would like in your new tab page.
Nice.
But yeah, they're definitely delivering on things people want. I'm trying to think of, they're on the planned list in the roadmap that doesn't have a date. They do have Edge availability on Linux listed there. They just don't have a date. As well as support for read aloud of PDF files, which I've had some people ask me about actually. So that's on there as planned, but no date. What else? Option to keep specific cookies when clearing your browser history. And I don't know about this one. Option to add a share button to the toolbar. I guess some people want to just have that an easier accessibility to share.
Yeah, I think a lot of this stuff is features that used to be in the old Edge that Edge users are like, hey, this doesn't feel like the other, and so, I mean, like the ability to ink or, I think the PDF stuff's really important. The PDF support in the new Edge is pretty basic today. So they're going to support links in a table of contents where you can actually jump around the document using the table of contents, which is missing today. And as if you try to read a giant PDF, like that's horrible.
Okay, yeah. So that's one of my most used feature on Safari. And another one is I use the share button in Safari all the time on my Mac. So it is a little weird, that the share button's not there, because I instead of using a read it later service of some sort or what have you, I just have a text. It's so sad. I just have a text message stream with myself, and that's where I send my links and things to look into later.
You know what? Whatever works.
Yeah, honestly,
that's funny.
Who but I talks to me the most? Yeah. Sure. No, I kid, but it is. I use that share button all the time. So now that I see that it's not here in Edge, I'm a little weirded out.
I'm sort of amused by some of the features that Microsoft says they're not going to add to Edge, right? So they've actually, this is all based on feedback, right? So people have asked for certain things. We're like, yeah, we're not going to do that one. But the best one, and this one's actually kind of amusing, is they're not going to allow users to sign into the browser using a Google account. Right?
Yeah,
it's like
people ask
you want to do that, just use Chrome. You know,
I know, right? Yeah.
I got to view the discussion there. I bet there's some really nice tea in there I need to sip on. We'll save that one for later. Oh, there's no share button in the toolbar. Darn. How am I going to remember? I didn't realize that there was this really handy public timeline. That's something that I don't get to experience really in the Apple community. What
do you mean? You don't visit all the Apple employee blogs and see what they're working on? It's weird.
I try to, but I basically am looking through this tiny little tinted window. Yeah. Hey, I'm out here. Can I come in? Huh. And they send me away. It's weird.
Surprising.
I do have to point out, Reverb Mike in the chat just says, I might use the share button, and that's share, CHER.
Yes.
That's pretty
what that does is it replaces all of the references to a certain person to be share instead.
That's great. Yeah, so we'll eventually have extension sync, which, if you've got multiple machines, that can get really annoying really fast.
Actually, that ties into something. Is that the next thing? It is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So this is kind of interesting because we don't have extension sync. You know, every time I review laptops, I use different computers all the time. I blow away my computers and reinstall them from scratch because I'm an idiot. And, not having extension sync is one more thing I have to kind of do manually. And so it's kind of interesting when I use the Chrome web store to install extensions. And honestly, if I scroll down that main page, I usually see most of the extensions that I want kind of advertised on the main page. One of the ones that Google never advertises is ad blockers, although they're in there. And for whatever reason, I realized later this was the case. I usually do install an ad blocker. I had just forgotten to. And so on this particular install, I didn't have an ad blocker. And I went to the New Balance website. I was trying to find the shoe I'd like to buy. I could never buy it because New Balance is the worst, but not to get off on a tangent, but they always change their models, and it's just really frustrating.
I love that you call them models. That's fantastic. It's very hardware, computer hardware.
No, because they have numbers associated with them, and they change. They
really?
Change. Yeah, they are models. Like, they're models. So I know this only because, again, like I said, they just keep – or they stop making them, whatever it is. So I gave up, and I was browsing around the web later, and I was getting New Balance ads everywhere. I took some screenshots of it. And I'm like, you know what? I thought part of the point of using the new Edge was that this wasn't going to happen. This thing is clearly tracking me around the web. Like, this thing, this shouldn't happen. So I tweeted about it. And to give Microsoft some credit, they actually contacted me via email and said, hey, they asked me some questions. We went back and forth. And they said, one thing you might want to try is you can use like the strict tracking protection setting rather than balanced, which is the default. And I was considering doing that. But of course, something like this, it's hard to test this because I've already done it. So I'd have to kind of duplicate this somehow, maybe on a different computer or with a different there's no way to be accurate. Like, there's no way to really know. But I was literally laying in bed and I was thinking about it, and I was like, wait a minute. I didn't tell the whole story, because when I couldn't find the shoe I was looking for, I went to Gmail. I searched through my email because I had ordered from them before, and I wanted to find that model number and see if I could find it on their site, which, by the way, I couldn't because, again, New Balance is terrible, but whatever. So I went back to them and I said, hey, I also went to Gmail. Do you think that, if you look at the description of tracking protection in Edge, it kind of says, like, they're not going to block tracking for sites that you trust. And Gmail, and I don't want to get into a thing about, whether Google is bad or whatever, but I mean, look, we trust Gmail. Gmail is a lot of things, and it does a lot of things, but it's not outright malicious like malware. I mean, I did go to Gmail. I mean, it seems like that would have, is what got in under the wire there. So I understand it. I guess I'm okay with it. But then again, to the average user, you can kind of make this case like you should switch to Edge because it's like Chrome without all the Google stuff, but it isn't really, right? So if I still have to install a special extension to block this kind of tracking, this is rhetorical. Is there really any advantage to still using Edge over Chrome? And the answer, of course, is yeah. I mean, there are other reasons, but it was kind of an interesting thing, and I only learned it because I forgot to put an ad blocker in it. And I might be completely wrong about this, but the way I sort of think of this is, had ads been blocked, I still would have been tracked. I just wouldn't have known about it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I wouldn't have seen the ads, but the thing that makes the ad appear would still be happening in the background.
Oh.
It's just that I'm not seeing the ad.
Oh,
so in a way, not installing the ad is what enabled me to see that this behavior was still happening, I think.
Yep.
And now that's interesting, and
it is,
and not good.
I know.
Right.
I have a question,
and I'm not blaming Microsoft. I mean, there's no doubt that this thing is an improvement, and I've got lots of advice from people about different extensions, and maybe if I use the Brave browser instead or whatever. I sort of feel like Brave is roughly the equivalent of Edge on strict. You know, I bet that's kind of how it works. It might even be more strict. I don't really know, but those kind of things can also break the way the web works, and there could be some negative side effects of it too.
So one of the questions I have, you said you use the Chrome Web Store as your tool extension or extension installer, essentially.
Yeah.
Upon going to that, when I go to it, it says at the top, and I'm curious to hear, what are the ins and outs of this? Google recommends switching to Chrome to use extensions securely. So installing extensions from the Chrome Web Store onto Credge, is that an insecure way? Go ahead.
No, that's I've never seen that before, and I see it now as well. That's new. So that's new. That's really interesting. And so this is tied to, there was a story, a month ago or something. I think it was Vivaldi, where they are also a Chromium-based browser. And what they discovered was that Google was using the browser ID string, whatever that's called, the way that the browser identifies itself, to determine that it was not really Chrome coming to their sites, and it was making things not work. And they documented like a feature in Google Docs that wasn't working correctly on their browser, stuff like this, where you get these weird spurious messages. And they said, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if we spoof the Google Chrome user ID. I'm using the wrong time. The browser ID, whatever the browser ID term is.
Yeah.
And then everything just worked. So Vivaldi was like, well, screw it. We're just going to say we're Chrome now. And that way everything's just going to work because there's nothing wrong with our browser. And I think what this is Google doing the same thing now to Edge. They're suggesting that by using a different browser, somehow you're going to be less secure, and that you can only get the most secure experience using a Google product, which, by the way, is, as I say, is one of the dumbest things I've ever said in my life. But it is their contention here. So I had never seen that message before. When you said that, I went to the Chrome Web Store, and there it is. But I'd never seen that before. So that's new. And Google, classic. Anyway, you can get your extensions from the Microsoft Store too, I suppose. I just use the Google one.
Yeah, well, it's
I
especially
trust them
handy.
and I love them.
It's especially handy if you have all of your extensions there that you want to install that are available in Chrome. So me signing in. And saying, okay,
the habit for me is that in the old Edge, actually you had to use the Edge Store. No, wait, is that true? Could you use Chrome?
I can't remember if you could.
Old Edge. I can't remember either. I feel like you could, because I have this memory that maybe it was just during the beta. I guess the deal was basically at some point, not every extension I wanted was in the Edge Store. So it's like, well, just go to the Chrome Store and get everything in one whack, and not, right. Why would I go back and forth?
Right.
Yeah. It's just a habit. It may not be required anymore for the things I use. I'm not even sure.
Interesting. Well, that's good to know, especially, folks hadn't seen that before or are now seeing it, and they're going, oh no, should I install my password manager from the Chrome Web Store?
Right.
That's deceptive.
Yeah, sounds like you're a little disgusted by that, a little put off by that.
Well, because
I bet they take it away, don't you? Because it feels like they keep going back and forth between the two of them, like warning against each other, and then they're like, "Oh, forget it," and they remove the message, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't
it's
like
kind
that.
of childish, right? Like,
it's
why would you even do it?
I don't like companies harming shared customers, right? So, if you're using Edge, but you're going to a Google service, what's the difference? Edge is based on Chrome anyway. Who cares? Just you're still.
I know, right?
They're still using your stuff. Like, why would you?
Exactly.
That's just terrible.
Yeah, they're still your customers essentially. So
yeah,
you
I don't
are
like. I
hurting
just
your
don't
own
like
customers.
that.
Yeah. Let's talk about Windows 10. Windows 10 version 2004. 2004.
Finally.
It should be here soon. That's good. What's the version called right now?
1909.
Man, I'll never understand this, will I? I'll never understand the numbering system.
So
Well,
the
help.
first two numbers of the year,
Okay.
right? The next two numbers of the month when it RTMs typically.
Oh, that's so easy. I know the code now. Oh,
Except 2004 is a weird one,
I know,
right? Because
it's 2004.
right. So it looks like 2004 to people, right?
yeah, like me.
And
Mhm.
yeah,
So it's going to come in April.
Well, we think it's going to come maybe in March or April. And the reason they used 04 instead of 03, which they typically would have used, is they thought people would be confused by Windows 2003, since there was a Windows Server 2003.
Oh, Lord.
Right.
Yes.
So they just changed the number to 2004. So we don't really know. Is it going to quote
You're gonna have to drink
RTM?
something stronger than that.
I know.
So here's the
We don't
thing.
know.
Well, you never know.
This release in particular is interesting because we actually started testing it a year ago. And not generally speaking, literally every single version of Windows 10 before this, we tested for the 6-month period before it was released.
Mm-hmm.
So this one, February, I think it was, 2019, skipped right over 1909 or 19H2 as we might have called it at the time. And they just started testing this. And of course, everyone's thinking, my God, this is going to be the mother load. If they're testing it this far in advance, this is going to be humongous, you know? And the year went on, and there were never really any big releases like we had in the past with a bunch of new features for this version of Windows 10. Like, it just never really amounted to anything humongous. And so even though we tested it for a long time, it's just working out to be like any other release of Windows 10. I mean, which is fine, by the way. That's not a complaint, but I think the expectation, because we started testing it so early, was like, maybe this is going to be humongous. And so, of course, given all this extra time, we had to speculate about why would they do this. And one of the speculation bits was the Core OS thing that they're doing to enable Windows 10X. And I think there's some truth to that. Mary Jo, I believe, was the one who had broken a story about Microsoft wanting to get the Azure and Windows releases synced up because the core part of the OS is developed by the same team. I think that makes total sense as well. I'm sure that's a big chunk of it too. So whatever the reason, here we are a year later. They basically finished this thing in December, which is really interesting because they're probably going to release it in March, like Mary Jo said, which means that there's at least, probably maybe, possibly whatever, but there's a months-long period of time between the time where they finalize the product, so to speak. I mean, Windows is never really finalized because it's like a service sort of, but whatever. And the time it's released to the public. And so we get into the situation, which is not completely unprecedented, except for the length of time, where between that time where they finalized it and the time where they actually released it to the public, they've actually been updating it, like not with new features, but just with security and bug fixes. And so, in the same way that the shipping versions of Windows 10 get cumulative updates every month, this thing has gotten cumulative updates every month. And it's not out yet. It's kind of weird. Like, it's just so it's new. I mean, we're adjusting. But I went over the list of stuff because I maintain a book about Windows 10, and there's a bunch of stuff I have to add to the book because of this release. To see whether or not there was anything super, super important. And actually, I should say, to be fair, there are some big features in this release. The Windows subsystem for Linux 2, for example, is a major change to that. If you use or need that, it's an actual Linux kernel. That's semi-historic. Microsoft is shipping its own Linux kernel inside of Windows. That's crazy.
Oh, wow.
There's a cloud. This will be no great shakes to a Mac user like yourself, but there is a cloud reset feature, meaning you can download a new OS image from the internet and install it on your computer and reset it essentially that way, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's honestly one of the handiest features on Mac OS. Whenever I've done,
and I have people have been asking me, like, well, what's the point? Like, why would you ever need to do that? I mean, there's two reasons. One is you can actually save disk space. So if you have a small disk on your computer and you don't want to hold the restore image, you can just do a cloud-based restore. But the other one is when you can't boot into the computer, and you can do it from the recovery environment. So, and that's how I would use it on a Mac, and that's how I will use it someday if I have to on Windows as well. So you can use your setup media or your recovery media, boot up into that recovery environment, and install from the cloud. It's a huge benefit. I mean, that's actually really neat. And then beyond that, it's, I think we talked about this kind of recently. The Windows search stuff has all changed. The Cortana is a separate app. And then we kind of go down to, diminishing returns on the chain. Well, you can rename virtual desktops, which actually is very useful because they retain on reboot, which is something it didn't used to do. That's cool. And stuff like that.
What
So
about
it's actually good. It's good.
More cow emoji.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes.
I can't even say it.
How do you say that?
K-A-O-M-O-J-I.
So it's where you use ASCII graphic or ASCII text to make little graphics out of text.
Like the shrugging
like,
guy.
Or the guy who's like, the shrugging guy, the owl eyes,
Yeah, cowmoji. Sure.
Cowmoji.
Wait, why not just use emoji? Why do we?
Because they have to have both.
You need both. You need more.
Oh, I see. More, not less. I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, now that they've filled it with emoji, they have to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, you got to have some other thing to draw people.
It's like a pinata. If you hit it too hard, all this stuff's going to come flying out of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like beyond that, though, like you're saying, everything is kind of like niceties, right? Like new options to do things in new ways, right? Yeah.
Honestly, the simpler Bluetooth pairing is interesting because I've noticed that's one of the issues I ran into. I was trying to, all I wanted to do was share a file from Elvis.
You really have a problem with not having a share button right there on everything.
I do share. He's big on sharing.
I wanted to share a file.
I need a share with myself button. Do
yes,
they have that?
They should, because I wanted to share a file from Elvis to my Mac. And normally in my world of Apple machines, I can just AirDrop between the two. And so I thought I'll use Bluetooth sharing. That should be easy, right? First I had to launch the Bluetooth connection dealie on Elvis and then have it find my Mac laptop. And then I had to, type in some code to confirm that they could talk to each other. And then I shared the file and it said it sent, but then it didn't send. So then I had to share it again. And then at that point it sent. And at that point I was like, why didn't I just launch a browser and email it to myself? That would have been faster. But we only have 2 hours and I can't explain the intricacies of how sharing has changed over the years in Windows. But I will say that you would have been better off just putting the machines next to each other and manually typing in whatever it was you were trying to share, because
really.
It can really, it can get stupid for sure.
Yeah. All right. Let me, do we have anything else to say about the new Windows 10? We could talk about Patch Tuesday, or we could take a quick break.
Yeah. Let's do Patch Tuesday real fast, because after that, you may want to get a Patch Tuesday cocktail during the break. I'm just saying. So last Patch Tuesday was a disaster. That's pretty much all you need to know. A whole bunch of the patches created problems for people. There were 2 different UEFI secure boot problems. One of them was so severe that Microsoft ended up pulling the patch. There was the problem that a number of people have reported about a cumulative update for Windows 10. I think it was for 1903 and maybe 1909, erasing users' profiles. So it looked like they weren't logged in with their own profile and hid their data. That's a pretty bad one. If you have that one, the suggestion is just remove that patch, because it's really hard to do the workaround.
Start using a Mac, basically.
I know, right? So that's, there's a whole, there's just like a really long list of things that went wrong with last Patch Tuesday. Windows Server Container Issue patch had a problem. SQL Server Reporting patch had a problem. It wasn't a good day. So I'd say the 2 that you mostly need to know about were the UEFI patch that Microsoft pulled, and they say they're working with partners to fix it. I think Kaspersky is the main partner they're working with to fix it. And then the one that I just talked about, removing user profiles. Just if you have that one, remove the I'll give you the KB number. KB 4532693. Go back, look in your Windows Update history, take that one off, and I guess Microsoft will be reissuing a new version of that patch at some point.
Whew. Yeah,
I know.
You're right. You were right about that.
So many people are just sending in notes like, glad they killed the Windows testing team. This is awesome. Yeah. And it's like every time this happens, you're like, you know.
I love how that comes up every single time.
I know. It comes up every time, doesn't it? And it's like.
Hey, guys, just as a reminder, we had lots of problems when that was the thing, too. I mean, like all of a sudden, it used to be perfect.
Just a big change.
You know?
No, there were still problems. I feel like we talk about all the time, now that you have all these different variants of Windows 10 out there, like 1809, 1903, 1909, they have to test so many combinations and permutations of everything before they put out patches that it's not surprising things break. It really isn't surprising. So, yeah.
I do. I mean, I wish they had kept the testing team or whatever, but let's not pretend.
Yeah. I know. It's not the panacea, right?
Yeah. It's really milk and honey or whatever. I mean. Yeah.
I know.
Remember when everything just worked great? Do you remember those days? I didn't have a computer.
What's tough though? Like when you see people were telling people hold off on applying the patches, and you're like, do you want to give that advice? Do you want to tell people to wait a month to apply it, right? But
by the way, you just triggered a memory for me. So in 2003, I agreed to co-author Windows Vista Secrets with Brian Livingston, right? And of course, that book didn't come out. It was Longhorn Secrets, at the time. But that book didn't come out until 2006 or whatever, because, that OS took forever. But one of the things that we actually got in a fight over was he had this advice that no one should install Windows updates for at least 2 months because you couldn't trust any of the updates. And I was like, dude, that is crazy. And we kind of went back and forth on that. And so I don't remember. I guess I should go look it up, see how we resolved it in the book. But that was when that team existed. So, I mean, it's not like everything was perfect back then. I mean, people, some people have really long memories. I mean, there were certain Windows 2000 service, I think it was Windows 2000 Service Pack 2, that was a reliability disaster that people pointed to for years. That was probably what Brian was talking about. But, yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, I wish they had the team too, but let's not pretend that everything was great. I mean,
I know that's true.
Everything was not great.
It's true. Never great, unfortunately. It's always.
I just feel like some Patch Tuesdays are worse than others, and this one you probably need more than one Patch Tuesday.
You are allowed more than one Patch Tuesday.
You can never have just one.
You can't.
Just like a certain chip, I think that's what it was. We'll take a quick break and come back to talk about Microsoft 365. And that reminds me, whenever we do talk about that, I've got to talk about, I don't know if it's on the list, but they've got some really pretty shows how the apps work on iOS that I want to talk about.
Like the video, you mean?
Yeah, that video is gorgeous. All right. But first, this episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by ExpressVPN. There are lots of VPN providers out there, and you may have even heard of a few. Some you may have even used, and some of you, know what a VPN is. And, I try, and we at Twit try to find the companies that we really can trust and recommend to our users. And frankly, ExpressVPN is the best VPN on the market. And here are some of the reasons why we feel that way here. First of all, and most importantly, I find, is that ExpressVPN does not log your data. Many of the cheap or free VPNs out there, they make money by selling the data of your activity to ad companies. ExpressVPN developed a technology that they call Trusted Server. This is really fancy stuff that makes it impossible for their servers to log any of your information. Essentially, their servers run on RAM. It is a volatile memory storage, and so as soon as the power goes out of that server, that data is gone. Whereas many VPNs run on standard storage, which of course will hold on to it until it is actually erased. The Trusted Server technology at ExpressVPN is really pretty cool. Of course, there's also speed. Other VPNs slow your connection down or make your device sluggish. ExpressVPN Does not. The speeds remain the same. I have even connected to servers thousands of miles away to watch the British version of the trash TV show The Circle, and I could still stream that trash TV in HD quality without any lag, having to worry about any of that. ExpressVPN genuinely I've used, and normally you can kind of tell the difference. You turn on the VPN and the connection's a little bit slower, or you see Netflix sort of drop to a lower quality stream. Not with ExpressVPN. The last thing that sets ExpressVPN apart is how easy it is to use. You fire up the app, you click one button, that's it, and it connects. So that means that, folks who might not know how to set up a VPN and use a VPN, you can help them with that by installing ExpressVPN for them. Then let them know. All they got to do is click this one button. There's TechRadar, there's The Verge, there's CNET, and many other tech experts out there that rate ExpressVPN as the #1 VPN in the world. One of the fun things about ExpressVPN, or at least that I found fun, I went online to see all the different places that you can install it, and they really do make it possible to run across your whole network. For routers that let you install services, you can install ExpressVPN at the router level so that everything's running regardless of what machine you're using, which is quite nice, because if you have folks over that you want to allow them to surf the web safely, then they don't have to worry about plugging all that information in or downloading the apps or anything like that. It just automatically is already running in the background at the router level. You can also install it for, they do some clever DNS stuff so that you can use your Apple TV with ExpressVPN. It's a simple installation on, I've got it on this Elvis laptop right here, the Surface Laptop 3. I've got it on my Mac. I've got it on my iPad and iPhone. It's everywhere, and it really is a simple setup, and tap the button and get it rolling. So you out there can protect yourself with the VPN I'm using, and I genuinely trust, especially for the fact that it's not logging my data. You just use the link expressvpn.com/windows today, and you get an extra 3 months free with a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/windows. Visit expressvpn.com/windows to learn all about ExpressVPN, the VPN that's not logging your data. Thanks so much to ExpressVPN for sponsoring Windows Weekly. Let's talk about Office and Microsoft 365. First, with Spaces for Outlook.
Yeah, I want to hear Paul's take on this feature. This was something the Walking Cat found. He's our super sleuth on Twitter. And there's this, it looks like there's going to be a feature coming to Office, and I think it's going to come to the business version of Office, not to Outlook.com. Sorry, of Outlook, not Outlook.com.
On the web. Outlook on the web.
Yeah, Outlook on the web. And what it is like a bulletin board that you can pull together all these different things that you have, like calendar items, to-do lists, emails, your sticky notes, your files, documents, and you can put them in this space and pin them there so that everything is accessible to you in one place.
I hate Outlook. I don't think they need to add stuff to it. I think they need to take stuff away.
Me too.
But anyway, I'm sorry.
When I saw this, I'm like, okay. I mean, is it kind of mimicking what SharePoint does in some ways? Like, I'm trying to figure out where this came from and who would want it. But, I can't say I'm the representative user here, because a bunch of people on Twitter said to me, I cannot wait till they come out with this. I think this is going to be amazing. Like, it's going to help me get so much more organized. So, the craziest thing about this was Walking Cat found a video of it. He found a site where people could actually, if they did a couple changes, could log in and get access to the beta. And when I asked Microsoft for comment, they said Microsoft does not comment on rumors and speculation. And I said, well, It's your video and people are accessing it from your site. So,
so it's not a rumor or a speculation. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So we don't know when it's going to come or who's going to get to use it. If you need a subscription, we don't know any of these things, but it seems like it's fairly close because it's in beta at this point. private
So
beta,
I should retract what I just said. I do hate Outlook, but this is Outlook on the web, which actually is the Outlook.com. I actually
you like that
Outlook
one,
on the web.
right? I know. I was going to say that's the one you like. Of all
Sorry, I hear Outlook,
like,
and my brain freezes up.
do you like digital dashboards?
Right.
Yeah, of course. Even Outlook, the thing I can't stand, had kind of a today view back in the day, which I thought kind of made sense at the time. Which was, like a dashboard for your day. Here are your appointments, your most important emails, whatever. Here are my thoughts. First of all, this reminds me of Pinterest, except for Outlook, which is kind of a weird. Yeah. It also reminds me a little bit of Teams in a way, and I almost wonder if this is part of a teamification of Outlook, where they're trying to make this product a little more appealing to the younger guys who might want to use Teams. I don't know.
Right. I know. I reminded me of Teams too, and I was like, okay, so how does this compete with or fit in with Teams, right?
I'm struggling to find a use for it.
Yeah. You know what's so hard, and we talk about this a lot on the show. We have our ways of working, right? Everybody has their patterns, how they do it, right? And so then you introduce something like this, and you're like, okay, that would be really hard for me to start thinking that way about pinning everything into Outlook. But for some people, maybe that would be natural. I don't know.
So, okay, interestingly, I didn't put this in the notes, but I wrote a thing about workflow today with regards to the new Outlook experience, right? Which is that thing you see when you go to, the new Office experience, which is that thing you can see when you go to office.com, whether you're a consumer or commercial customer of Microsoft's. You can get it through the Office app on Windows 10. You can get it through Office Mobile, which we'll talk about later, on Android or iOS. You can get it through the Office extension for Chrome and the new Edge. If you want, you can get it. There's a bunch of different places, right? And I from a workflow perspective, as an old school kind of a person who uses the desktop as a scratch space, and I save things there temporarily, and then I file them away in very specific locations in OneDrive, I'm going to have a hard time adapting to that kind of view. But I think for most people, it would be very easy, because it's like, look, here's all your apps. Here's your most recent documents or your pinned documents, whatever it is. I think that's the way most people work. It probably works pretty great. And so even though I don't know that I'll be happy using it, I feel like I could use it if I had to. And I certainly see the use, the benefit of it. This Spaces thing, this falls into a different category.
Me too.
Do we really need another one of these things? You just updated the Office experience. Why, if this is so necessary, shouldn't it just be part of that? Why would this be another feature of Outlook? It just seems strange to me.
It does. Although, if you go on Outlook.com, I feel like every time I go on Outlook.com now, it looks different. Almost every single time I go there. And now they're on the far right rail. I see my just today's events of my calendar pinned. That didn't used to be there before. And so I'm like, okay, that's new. I wonder when that got added. So
now you're talking, you have an Office. This is commercial Office you're talking about.
No, this is my consumer account.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah. So and somebody said to me on Twitter, how do you keep all these Outlooks straight? There's Outlook on the web, and there's Outlook.com, and there's Outlook, the app, and then there's Outlook part of Office 365. And I'm like, Microsoft wants to make it look like they're one thing, but they're all different. They somewhat are converging in features, but they're not the same products, right?
I just said this to someone on Twitter today. The functional inconsistencies are a problem, especially in a product like Outlook, which is so crucial. Obviously, it's email and calendar and contact management. I mean,
no, and then Outlook on iOS and Android are completely different. Also, those aren't even the same base product, right? They're Acompli renamed, basically.
Yep.
So
and then on Windows 10 we have the Mail and Calendar app and People.
It has nothing to do with Outlook, right?
No. Well, except that Microsoft thinks of them as another kind of Outlook.
I know.
Which is
weird, it's tricky to figure out how these things fit together, what shows up in which version of something that has the same name. Office is starting to fall into that category too. This new Office app that you were just describing in your workflow, Microsoft just calls that Office. But Office is a lot of different things, right? It's not just that.
I know. Listen, this is why we're gainfully employed.
I know, right? It is. It is. But I will say, back to the Office experience you were talking about. If anybody hasn't tried this, you really should try this. Log into office.com. You can log in with your personal account, your work account, and or your work account, and it is so handy to have everything in one place.
If you're in Windows 10, just run the Office app.
Yeah, or run the Office app. Yeah.
So that is the same experience, the Office app and Office.com?
Yeah, basically. I like Office.com. That's how I look at that. But I really thought I would never use that, and I'm using it all the time now as the way to access my stuff.
Yeah. Well, right. Okay. So that kind of supports what I was saying earlier. Like, I feel like I think as a technical person, and I think a lot of people watching or listening to this or who read my site fall into this category, we overthink things, and we create all this, I don't know what to call it, infrastructure. I have this folder structure. I literally have files that go back to the mid-1990s, and they're all organized in this really anal retentive way, and it makes sense to me, but I'm an insane person, so maybe that's not the best way to do it. For example, so why would you organize things like that, right? So I can find things, but we have search. So I mean, if you go to office.com or the Office app probably or whatever, and search for that doc, if you have any inkling of what you're looking for, which of course you do, you're going to find it. So who cares where it is? Why does it matter?
I don't think you can just count on just finding it, because sometimes I don't know. It's like I was telling you last week, sometimes I put things in really weird places in my OneDrive, or especially if I'm using OneDrive for Business, and it's in like SharePoint somehow. And then I try to use search, and it doesn't search there for some reason. And so I can't always use search to find my stuff.
I will say I've had good luck with it. And I have both accounts. I also have consumer and commercial Office 365, but I mostly use the consumer version. And sometimes I'm like, look, I know where this one file, I have like an old CD keys file, for example. It's a text file that has product keys in it. And it's called CD keys.txt, whatever. In my head, I sort of have a rough understanding of where it should be. And then I'll actually go looking for it in File Explorer, and I can't find it. And then I'll go to OneDrive.com and search for CD keys.txt, and it comes up like immediately. Like, it's amazing.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
All I can say is I'm super disorganized in how my stuff is arranged. Like, people have been emailing me this week. We are. Yeah. Like, you have like this meticulous Dewey Decimal System. And this is me. I'm like throwing files all over the place, and I'm like, where did I even put that? Right?
We're like the odd couple, except for file storage.
So you do need this little workspace where you can just sort of throw things onto your virtual desktop, Mary Jo.
Maybe I do need that. I mean, I'm so disorganized. Like, it's
depending
amazing
on how
I
you
even
work.
have a show.
Like if Mary, depending on how, like, I don't know exactly how Mary Jo works, but I mean, if Mary Jo has some number of recent documents that are things she's working on that maybe she hasn't published to the web yet, and for whatever reason, maybe she's not ready, she's waiting for someone to comment or something, those things will always come up at the top of that list. Like when you go to office.com or whatever, like, it doesn't matter where they are. I mean, like, you're gonna find it. Like, it's like that works pretty well. And
so okay, here's an example. I scanned 2 things in yesterday, right? And I saved them to my desktop. I didn't pay attention to where I saved them. I just scanned them and saved them, right? And then I went to use search to try to find them, and I couldn't find them because they saved like somewhere in like an obscure folder in OneDrive for Business somehow. Like, I'm like, okay. I guess that's where I'm saving scans. I don't know. So yeah, I'm a disaster. I admit it. If you looked at how my desktop file system is organized, Paul, you would just be like, what are you doing?
Yeah. But the problem is I can't help you because my answer to this problem is so extreme on the other side that it's just unreasonable.
Is it very specific to you?
Oh, yeah. Really. It's been honed over 20 years. It's dumb. Well, it's logical. No, I mean, it's...
You know where everything is, unlike me.
It's overthought. Yeah, oh, yeah. I can find anything. It's crazy. I mean, I have incredible archives. But the truth is 99% of the time or more, I don't need them. I don't use them every day. It's not like I don't even know why I do this.
Why do I do this? What's happening to me?
I've wasted my life. What, no, I don't know.
I am currently using the share button, the hidden share button, to share via.
If I ever lose my iMessage stream, I'm screwed because that's literally where everything is.
To share via email the link to Microsoft Office so that I can install it on my iPhone. I have the Your Phone system, but you can only go from the phone to the Windows PC, not the other way around.
Right.
Yeah, it's a one-way dead-end street.
Darn it. But, I mean, speaking of this, we should talk about the 25% of Office 365 licenses are sold through Microsoft 365. Again, there are multiple 365s. What? How? Huh?
I know.
How does this all work?
Yeah.
So this is just kind of like we talk about Microsoft numbers a lot, and we say you never can really extrapolate how much they're doing business of anything because they give you different numbers measuring different things at different times. So this is just another data point that they shared last week in an investor call, but I thought it was interesting. So they say now, as of now, 1/4 of all of the Office 365 business licenses they sell are sold through Microsoft 365.
Can I ask you a question about this?
Yeah.
Because this number is specific, right? And this could provide very useful information. But does that mean over 25% of Office 365 licenses ever sold, or of the ones that they're selling right now?
They said now.
Yeah.
The word
now. Yeah, okay. So you have to almost look at the Office 365 commercial numbers and how they've changed over time to have an understanding of what
use anything. Yeah. So we know there's, as of last fall, there's 200 million Office 365 commercial monthly users, but you can't really compare that to this number because they weren't saying commercial monthly users. They were just saying total number of licenses sold now.
Yep.
Right. Yep. But still, you know what? This number kind of surprised me. I thought it was high because if you had said to me, I think a lot more people have Office 365 than Microsoft 365, right? Okay. I mean, Microsoft 365 is the bundle of Windows 10, Enterprise, Office 365, and Enterprise Security and Mobility, right? So I think a lot of people have Microsoft 365 commercial. I don't know as many people who have Microsoft 365, the whole all-up bundle together. So the fact that 1/4 of their Office sales are now coming through this means Microsoft 365 is doing better than I thought it was. That was my takeaway from that.
I am surprised they provided any number for this.
Me too. I am too.
Just given how cagey they are about this kind of thing. So I can't say
they threw it out there voluntarily. It wasn't like an answer to a question. It was Jared Spataro, who runs marketing for Microsoft 365, saying, by the way, here's a number we've never provided before, and here it is, right? And I was like, oh, that's interesting, and I don't know what to make of it, but there it is. Okay.
At some point, this dividing line has to go away, because if you actually go and research Microsoft 365 and you're thinking, well, I want to buy some licenses for this, what are the different offerings? Two of the offerings, the base two tiers or whatever, are literally Office 365 tiers. Like they consider Office 365 to be part of Microsoft 365, or you can kind of mix and match. And that's interesting because it's sort of the opposite to the way I've described it, which is I think of Microsoft 365 as a superset, if you will, of Office 365, or if you could think of them as higher end tiers of Microsoft 365, but they're kind of positioning it the opposite way, where Office 365 tiers are entry level tiers of Microsoft 365, if that makes sense.
And I think that explains what we're expecting in a couple months, which is when Microsoft announces the new brand for Microsoft 365 Consumer, that's really a rebrand of Office 365 Consumer, right? That's mostly what that's going to be. So, I
think I mentioned this to Brad last week or something, but Mary Jo, I don't know if you knew this, but and I found this out in researching Microsoft 365. If you have an Office 365 I'm sorry, let me backstep. So you have an understanding that when you sign into Windows 10, you can do so with a Microsoft account. But you can also do so with an Azure Active Directory account. So that's like the work or school ID that is kind of like the managed version. Well, Microsoft account is managed, but the commercial version of like a Microsoft account. Just by virtue of the fact that you have an Office 365 commercial account, you actually have an Azure Active Directory account. You have what's called an Azure Active Directory free account. And that means that you can log into a Windows 10 computer with that ID, just like you can a Microsoft account.
How do you know what it is?
Well, it's whatever your commercial account is. Like
it is. Same thing. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you can literally just sign into Windows 10 with it.
Okay.
The issue is, if you have an Office 365 commercial account, which you do, which I do, Azure Active Directory Free does not support account sync, so you can't sync your settings. So in order to enable that, because you own your company, would have to buy an add-on that costs $8 a month that enables that, or by the way, upgrade to a Microsoft 365 business account, which is another $8 a month too. It's the same price. One of the benefits of going to Microsoft 365, and it's one of the smaller ones, I guess, but is you get that settings sync capability that we get on the consumer side.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird. I literally just found this out like a week or 10 days ago.
Look at you learning new things.
See, anyone can do it.
It's pretty wild. So the thing that I found interesting that I was kind of talking about a little bit, this is available via, well, now I'm trying to find it from one of my many links. I should have just shared it to myself. No.
Yep.
On the Microsoft 365 blog, there's this gorgeous video where they're showing off the new Office app for iOS and Android that...
Now, I should warn you in advance, the exploding pillows and ribbons and things, those don't actually come out of the app, right?
You don't get those, unfortunately.
Yeah.
At least not on the first version. Maybe after they add Calmoji, or however it's pronounced, then they'll add these exploding things.
Right.
It's different, it's interesting, and I appreciated it. I don't know, it was fun to watch, and it actually did make me go, ooh, I kind of want to download and install that. Especially because I spent this morning complaining about how trash, absolute utter trash, Google Sheets is on iOS. So if Excel's any better.
Here's what I'll say. Microsoft has tons of different versions of the Office app clients. And if you think about like the core apps, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint in this case, they've always supported or long supported like each of those apps in a mobile form. There's a web version, there's the Windows version, Mac version, et cetera. I think for most people on a phone, aside from the fact that you have to update all those apps separately and think about them separately, whatever it is, I think having them all in one place makes a ton of sense on mobile.
Yeah, I agree. But we're going to take a quick break here and come back with the rest of the show. So this episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by the leader in address verification. It's Melissa. Every address is covered from Adelaide, Australia to Zipaquirá, Colombia, and everywhere in between. We all know there's nothing good about bad data. It costs money, it hurts sales, and decreases customer satisfaction. If bad addresses, duplicate records, and bouncing emails are hurting your business, isn't it time to come clean with Melissa? Delta Faucet, for one, Z1 Motorsports, and Car2Go use Melissa, and you should too. Delta Faucet was able to improve their call center processes with global address auto-completion, and Melissa was able to reduce the fraudulent e-commerce transactions for Z1 Motorsports by 90%. Melissa provides a full spectrum of data quality protection for your customer data. You can verify postal addresses, mobile numbers, and email addresses, update the addresses of customers that have moved and eliminate duplicate records, and gain additional customer insight into your data with Melissa's analytics. You can easily build address verification and customer data validation into your custom application because Melissa has APIs, CRM cloud connectors, and e-commerce plugins. Or if you want to, you can upload your customer file for a quick data cleanse. Melissa is serious about securely managing your data. They continually undergo independent, that's the important part, independent security audits to reinforce their commitment to data security, privacy, and compliance requirements. That's SOC 2, that's HIPAA, and GDPR compliance and all of those. Mailers spend about $20 billion annually in undeliverable mail. You don't want to lose customers and you don't want to lose cash, so make every address count. Bad data happens to good companies. That's why 10,000 organizations worldwide trust Melissa to get their customer data clean and accurate. Get started today with 25,000 records cleaned for free. That's a $75 value at melissa.com/twit. Head to melissa.com/twit or call 1-800-MELISSA, MELISSA, to find out more. And our thanks to Melissa for sponsoring this week's episode of Windows Weekly. We do appreciate you. All righty, let us talk about now. This is what's going on. Amazon wins in court. And, yep. I see. Yes. This is the Jedi thing. There was kind of a challenge by Amazon. They wanted to be a part of it. And it looks like Amazon did end up granting the temporary block for the contract for Microsoft.
Yeah. I have to admit, I was surprised that this happened. We knew Amazon was contesting the Jedi contract, which is the $10 billion 10-year cloud contract from the DoD. Everybody thought Amazon was going to win, right? And then Microsoft ended up winning in October. Surprise, right? So Amazon contested it, saying that politics were involved, that Trump himself actually intervened, and because he hates Jeff Bezos, that he basically said, I want anybody but Amazon to win this contract, so Microsoft won. Amazon contested that in court, and then last week, a federal court judge upheld the temporary stoppage of the contract until things are sorted out.
Wow. The
reason that's significant is Microsoft's already been hiring, staffing up, actually getting ready to start the work. They were ready to start the work if they haven't already yet started it. And so now it's like the judge said, hold on, let's stop the contract till we figure out if Amazon actually has a point here and that we should rebid the contract or somehow overturn the bid. Oracle, meanwhile, is off on the side, continuing to needle everyone, even though Oracle can't win this contract. They keep contesting it and fighting it. But Microsoft Oracle is, I know. Oracle has
the Eddie Haskell of this story.
Yeah, exactly. Larry Ellison equals Eddie Haskell. That's a good metaphor there. Microsoft, of course, said they won on their merits and they're expecting things to be resolved in their favor. Amazon. This was definitely a win for them, this temporary stoppage, and we don't have a date when something will happen next, but for now, everything's on hold with the Jedi.
Oh, man.
Just like with the real Star Wars series.
Oh,
exactly.
I don't think,
got him.
I don't think anything's going to change. I mean,
You think it's kind of a sort of a more than just lip service because it's actual.
I think there are legal requirements that have to be expanded, and then we'll be done.
And then once they realize, or once they sort of say, well, it's all good to go.
We can award it to whoever we want to award it to. So thanks.
Yeah.
In fact, I think
the only two companies that really could have pulled it off, I think, are Microsoft or Amazon,
right?
Because of the scope of that contract, right?
But actually, I honestly, one of the big part of the story here is there are a lot of people, including a lot of people who believe that Amazon was somehow more deserving of this. But when you look at what is really required here, it's a modernization of, a bunch of previously separate old school computer systems. I mean, that's what Microsoft does. That's no one has more experience doing that than Microsoft. I mean, I
think both of them they have a lot of experience. Both of them have won a lot of government contracts, right?
Yeah.
I think either of them could make a case of why they thought they should have won. The weird thing about this contract always to me was it was winner take all. Like it wasn't, well, they're going to slice this up. It's like whoever wins, they win, and they can divvy it up themselves after that. But it's one company that's going to oversee this contract. $10 billion, right, for 10 years. It's not small potatoes, guys.
Exactly. Yeah. That's I mean, and so I understand sort of why the challenge is there, right? But it's not.
Honestly, I think the other aspect of it, a lot of people, you kind of focus on the amount like 10 or 11 billion, whatever it is, but that's over like a decade too. I mean, honestly, or whatever the time period, it's a long time. It's several years. I mean,
10 years,
$1 billion a year, whatever. I mean, I don't think the enormity of this is just that number. I think it's that once you're in like this, you're kind of in for life at this point. I mean, the systems they've been using, many of those things have been in place since the 80s. I mean, I think getting this contract positions you for other government contracts and just creates this kind of long-term relationship thing. I think it's more about getting in than it is about this specific one thing.
That makes sense.
It is a big deal.
Yeah.
But I think Microsoft is deserving of it too.
Yeah. All right, Mary Jo, time to pull out your controller and
ready.
Put on your green hat because it's Xbox Corner.
Yeah, there isn't that much Xbox news this week, unfortunately, but it's all good news. Sometime last year, Microsoft, I think early last year, they announced they were going to port the Halo Master Chief Collection to the PC and remaster all the games, which is really cool. Why they weren't all in the PC to begin with is another story. But anyway, very late in the year, they delivered the first game, which is Halo Reach. They're doing the games chronologically, not by how they were released in real life, but chronologically in the game timeline, if that makes sense. So the second game is the first Halo game, which was originally called Halo Combat Evolved. That one was on the PC, but the anniversary edition that they're working on now is going to be remastered in 4K, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously it's going to be awesome. And it's one of the seminal games, obviously, in the series. This is one that everyone's looking forward to. So they finally just began testing publicly the PC version of Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary. It's not available to everyone on the Halo Insider program, but it will be eventually made available to everybody. So it's happening. The one screenshot I saw didn't look particularly impressive, but whatever. It's Halo. I'm still looking forward to it.
Yeah, everybody loves it.
And then I talk a lot about Game Pass. I'm going to be doing a kind of a Game Pass series sometime soon. But basically, Microsoft has a subscription service for both console and PC where they bring the games to a library that you can download to your device and play online or off. And every month they add new games. And they do it in 2 drops. They have one right at the beginning of the month, and it occurs over the course of the first half of the month. And then usually mid-month, they announce what they're going to release in the second half of the month. So they did that this week. I'm looking at the titles here. I mean, depending on
Jackbox.
What you're into. Yeah, Wasteland was kind of a big game, as I recall.
Kingdom Hearts is a favorite of some.
I don't recognize most of these games, I'm embarrassed to say. But there are several of them.
Game of Thrones, I didn't know had a game. That's interesting.
Yeah, Yakuza 0. It's funny. Obviously, some are available on both platforms. The Xbox tends to have more games than the PC because Microsoft is just getting their PC effort off the ground again. But you should be able to find something you like either way.
Cool. Yeah.
See, that was painless, Mary Jo.
That was pretty good. Nice work.
She was busy.
Work.
She was busy killing noobs while you were talking. Distracted with the noobs. Let's kick things off with the tips and picks of the week by talking about the first tip of the week.
This one's really cool. So I talk a lot about this app. I made a clone of the Notepad app. I wrote it using Visual Basic and Windows Forms, and then I ported it to C#, which is a more sophisticated language. Ported it partially. I didn't complete this, but I ported it to the Windows Presentation Foundation. And then last week when I was investigating the dual screen SDKs that Microsoft had released, I started thinking about UWP, which is the native app platform on Windows 10, and whether it would make sense to do some kind of an app around that, like maybe an app for my book. I think I mentioned that last week. And then I thought, man, I have this app. I wonder if I could bring this Notepad clone to UWP. And so I worked on that, and it's going to be it's difficult, but I actually kind of like the way it looks. And in the process of doing all this, I started maybe I need to learn more about this. Like, where could I learn about UWP? And I've taken some online classes at Udacity, which has for developers. They don't offer anything for UWP, but I found that they have actually 3 courses that are free on edX, which is, I think, edx.org. And when I found that, I realized they have an incredible collection of Microsoft courses at this site. Ooh. So if you go to, and they're all free. If you didn't know, I didn't know about this. edx.org/school/Microsoft. I can't speak to the quality of all of these, but based on the one I've seen, they're probably going to be pretty good. It's everything from programming languages and frameworks to like Windows Server, security, different Office applications and services, deep learning, threat detection, speech recognition. It goes on and on. It's crazy. Like the number of Microsoft-oriented classes that are available on this site is astonishing. So if you want to learn more about a specific Microsoft topic, you need to check this out. This is really,
there are
really
a bunch
good.
of courses on here. Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. It just keeps going. Like if you scroll down, it will just keeps going.
Yeah. Do you remember it was like in 2018, Microsoft said they were going to do this Microsoft Professional Degree Program. They piloted it with edx.org, but I think if I remember right, I think they decided in the end they weren't going to go forward with that. So maybe they just left the courses there. I don't know.
I mean, some of these are not like ancient or anything. I mean,
like there's AI ones, right? Like they're
this
current,
is an old
up
stuff.
to date.
Like this is
No.
I mean, whether it's like programming or IT related, I mean, you need to look through this list. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
If you want to learn more about particular topics, really, a lot of Azure stuff.
Cool.
There's some non-consumer stuff in there for you.
Yep.
For anyone who hates consumers, you can get your
this is
courses
you want to hang out at
right there.
edX because apparently they hate them too. No.
Oh, that's my.
Micah, I blame you for that. That's going to be like on my tombstone. She hated consumers.
she
Look, we all need to find our community. I mean, you just
Your tombstone will be in the cloud though, so that'll be cool.
Brace your tread.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She hated consumers, Mary Jo Foley.
Oh boy, love it. We know you love them all secretly, maybe, except for the noobs, which you destroy.
Except for the gamers. I don't know. Oh, yeah, gamers.
Wow.
Oh man. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the app pick of the week before things get too intense. This is what you were referencing earlier, Mary Jo.
Yes, we talked about this earlier, but Microsoft this week released the first non-beta versions of the consolidated Office app for both iOS and Android. And it's basically one app called Office where you can access, obviously, your documents, but also in-app versions of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And by the way, Mary Jo, I don't know if you noticed this, there's a notes experience that looks like sticky notes. It's not like OneNote. I assume it syncs to something.
Nope.
But it has to sync to OneNote, right? It has to.
I think it comes from Office Lens, maybe, which is something they combined into these apps as well. They had kind of a note-related thing.
I have a big problem with functional duplication like this, but anyway, there's a lightweight note-taking experience. Actually, Mika, you would love it. It's
I'm
you can
trying
write little
now.
notes to yourself.
Right. It's not Notepad.
This is where I can
it's not
share.
Sticky notes.
Yep, you can share.
Testing notes. Let's see. Oh, yeah.
I just don't know where they go. Like, in other words, I'm going to play with this, but I suppose if you went in and saved a note,
now I'm going to go to
OneNote. I assume because you can sync sticky notes into OneNote.
Right. You can.
I bet it's in there somewhere.
OneNote. How do I get to OneNote in the cloud? OneNote.com. Does that work?
OneNote.com. Yeah, that works.
All right. Let's see. I just wrote a note in Notes on Office on iOS. And why are you? I've already signed in. Don't make me do this again. We've been through this, Elvis. Let's see.
Don't make me crack your screen, buddy.
Yeah. Come on now.
I'll do it.
I know your weakness.
I'll close you right from the corner. I'll do it.
This is the longest sign-in process.
I'm doing this too as you say this. I don't usually use the web version, but It has a nice loading animation.
Yeah.
That seems to be there for a long time.
Loading animation.
It's like watching a galaxy die. Oh, here we go.
You're already signed in. I know I'm signed in.
No, I'm not.
No, that's what it said to me. It said you're already signed in. I was like, yeah, I know.
Oh, actually, I got that.
See? What is going on? Okay, now it's getting things ready for me.
That's funny.
Excellent.
Still loading. Okay, we're here.
No, where these notes could possibly
Micah's
be.
notebook. Skip.
See, this is my life, Paul. You would hate it. Like when you save something, you're like, where is it?
Right.
Yeah,
I have all like the test notes I've made over the years just for like books and stuff. So it's always like shopping lists, trip plan.
I don't see it being synced.
OneNote. Yeah, I don't know. Well,
it's new. So there are going to be some kinks.
I did mention that I was curious about it. I don't know where it goes. I'm sure it goes somewhere. I'm sure it must, right? They wouldn't just
put it in the ether.
Even as I say that, it sounds ludicrous. I don't know where it goes, but it is. I find it odd that there's a note.
I wonder if I go to Office.
Where does this go? You can. By the way, you can share the note. There is a share button in the note. It's just like sticky notes. You can choose the color. It looks like sticky notes. It's got to be a sticky note.
But I'm not sure it is.
Yeah, I don't see where it is.
Well, it's in the Office app, so there you go.
Yeah.
When you're out shopping for groceries, whatever it is you do when you leave the office.
Right. All right. Well, there's that. A new note experience with some sort of syncing that only happens.
It's colorful.
It
is colorful.
It is, yeah. I'm sure I could change even the color. Yeah, I can do green. All right, it wins. It gets a pass for me.
Yep.
And there's even a share button right at the top.
There is a share button. There is a share button right at the top.
That's fantastic. Yep. I could take photos even.
Right. So if you want to take a photo of a whiteboard or a QR code, you can just use that.
Right. And I should have mentioned that too. It does have those Office Lens features. It's got some PDF functionality. You can sign PDFs with it.
That's what I'm dying for. The signed PDF on your phone thing would be like, yes, finally.
Yep.
Oh, I think I broke it.
Yeah.
It did not like that I put a photo in the note.
Okay, so Kevin Herm is listening, and he said notes in that new Office app do sync with sticky notes on Windows 10.
Oh,
okay.
Sticky.
Okay, and Windows sticky notes in Windows 10 in turn do sync to OneDrive if you want them to, I believe.
That's right. They sync to OneNote.
There it is.
To OneNote. I'm sorry, that's what I meant. OneNote. Yep.
There it is. I just found my new note.
Good. There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. That's fantastic. All right. Hello, Sticky Notes.
This unified app, it's Word, Excel, and PowerPoint combined into one thing. So if you're a lightweight user of those apps on your phone, this is the one you want. You don't want to have giant Word, giant Excel.
I think most people on a phone would be lightweight users of those apps, right? So yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Although I have a guy asking me on Twitter about Excel. He's like, so if I already use Excel extensively on my phone, why would I want this? You would not. You would not be the person who would want that, right?
That is not for you.
No, that's
okay.
It's not going to be. Look, like I said earlier, every one of these apps has different levels of functionality.
Yeah.
This is going to be down market from the standalone mobile apps on phone. So.
Oh, and Kevin also says they're syncing to the Microsoft Launcher on Android as well.
Oh, okay.
Right. So in other words, if you went over to the feed and you had your notes over there, you would see them. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
All righty.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for that clarification there. That's kind of nice. That might now be a way because as we were just talking, because normally it only goes one way, but this I can write a note on my Elvis and it'll be on my app. That's great. So now I'm going to have a note with myself along with an iMessage with myself. And I'm going to call my therapist after we get finished with the show. What is the enterprise pick of the week, Mary Jo?
The enterprise pick is Dynamics 365. If you're a Dynamics 365 user, you know there are a lot of apps in that suite. CRM apps, ERP apps. And as of today, guess what? You're going to get 2 more apps. So you're either really happy if you're somebody who loves all these apps, or you're like, oh man, 2 more apps. But yeah, they're coming. So one of them is called Dynamics 365 Project Operations. It's coming October 1st. So if you currently use Project Service Automation, Dynamics 365, this is going to replace that. And it's going to combine some capabilities from the Project Service that Microsoft announced last year, the new Project Service, with Project Service Automation, mush them together, and you get this Project Operations app that is ultimately going to be what replaces Project Service Automation. That's one of them. The other one is called Dynamics 365 Finance Insights. So if you follow Dynamics 365 or try to, like I do, anything with the word insights at the end means AI, all about AI. So this is finance plus AI so that you can make proactive and predictive moves about your company's cash position. That is going to be out in preview in May. So just when you thought you had the Dynamics roadmap all nailed, no, here are 2 more apps.
But wait, there's more.
Yep.
All right. And now the code name pick of the week.
Right. So this is pertaining to the app we were just talking about, the new Microsoft Office app for iOS and Android. The code name of that was Union.
Oh, clever.
That makes sense, right?
Yes.
What did they do? They brought together in a union Word, Excel, and PowerPoint and created this new lightweight single app. I don't want to call it Microsoft Works, but kind of like that for your phone.
Makes sense.
The code name was Union.
I like it.
Yeah, me too.
And last but not least, most importantly, the beer pick of the week.
Right. The beer pick of the week is from Aslan Brewing, which is in Herndon, Virginia. And that's significant because Microsoft does a lot of their government cloud and federal cloud business down in that area, which is right near Washington, D.C. So this is a little hat tip to Jedi and Microsoft kind of drowning their sorrows about Jedi with a beer. It's called the Aslan Master of Oranges. So this is a very unusual double IPA. It's not really hoppy. It's not really sweet, like many are to one or the other. It's kind of the perfect beer if you like oranges. It tastes like bitter orange, like it almost smells and tastes like an orange peel. Ooh. And if you can imagine that in a beer, it's very, very delicious. So Aslan Brewing, they're starting to get their beers more widely distributed. I had never had Master of Oranges until this week, and I have to say, it's one of the best double IPAs I've had in a while. Clocks in around 8-point-something%, so kind of on the heavier side, but you can just have one. If you.
Very cool. The orange scent is right? I'm sure quite nice.
It's so nice.
Yeah,
it is.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of another episode of Windows Weekly. Of course, the show records live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. That's 11 a.m. Pacific, which is 1900 UTC. You can join us at irc.twit.tv if you're watching live to chat with us while we're going along and sharing your thoughts and tips as we're talking, which is very helpful. And heading to twit.tv/live gets you access to that stream. If you head to twit.tv/WW, that will get you to Windows Weekly's show page where you can find all of the links to subscribe to the show in whatever podcast application you use. Mary Jo Foley of All About Microsoft, thanks so much for today.
Thank you.
And Paul Thurrott of Thurrott.com. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Leo Laporte will be back next week. But until then, I am Micah Sargent, and I thank you for joining us for another episode of Windows Weekly.